Hello there, fellow nighttime scientists. Welcome to this quiet little corner of the internet. I'm so glad you've joined me tonight for a relaxing journey back in time. Before we begin, I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from and what time of day it is for you right now. Feel free to leave a comment and say hello. I always enjoy seeing where my listeners call home, whether it's a cosy bedroom in Paris, a sunny porch in Sydney, or a library nook in New York. If you're new here and you enjoy calm science and astronomy-based storytelling to unwind to, consider subscribing to catch all my future episodes. There's something quite special about drifting off to sleep while filling your mind with wonder about the world and its past. So go ahead and get settled in. Fluff up your pillow, snuggle under the covers, and let my voice carry you on a peaceful stroll through the history of life on Earth. Our planet has been around for over 4.5 billion years. That's an incredibly long span of time, far longer than our human minds can easily grasp. If we compress Earth's entire history into a single 24-hour day, humans only arrived in the final minute before midnight. Yet in that unimaginably vast expanse of time before us, the world has been anything but quiet and uneventful. Earth has witnessed the rise and fall of countless strange creatures, from armoured trilobites scuttling across ancient seafloors to pterosaurs soaring through primeval skies. It's a story full of plot twists, disasters that wiped out entire ecosystems, and amazing recoveries that spawned new worlds full of wildly alien organisms. In hushed tones, geologists and paleontologists speak of mass extinctions, catastrophic events that reshuffled the cast of characters on the ever-evolving stage of life. Tonight, let's take a journey through that tumultuous past together and explore some of the most dramatic chapters in our planet's biography. We'll encounter stampeding herds of triceratops, sky-darkening supervolcanoes, and an asteroid impact so violent it ended the age of the dinosaurs. But don't worry, there won't be any loud jump scares or heart-pounding action scenes. This is history painted in quiet, muted hues, a bedtime story set against the black velvet backdrop of deep time. So for now, let's allow our minds to wander back many hundreds of millions of years, long before the age of dinosaurs or mammals, to the first known mass extinction in Earth's history. Imagine the scene. It's sometime around 540 million years ago, and we find ourselves on the edge of a shallow tropical sea. The air is thick and hazy, perfumed with unfamiliar gases exhaled by primitive life. Bizarre, squishy creatures called Ediacaran biota rule this alien world. They blanket the seafloor like a living carpet, their soft, fleshy bodies adopting fractal shapes unseen in nature today. There are segmented ovals that resemble fallen leaves, frond-like creatures that sway with the currents, and even a few mobile animals squirming through the ooze. This is Earth's first known complex animal ecosystem, and marks a major milestone in life's early evolution. But as resilient as life is, it's also fragile. Many Ediacaran species mysteriously vanished around 540 million years ago, in Earth's first known mass extinction. We're still piecing together what exactly happened, but there are some compelling clues and theories. Some scientists suspect a global cooling event may have dealt the killing blow. Subtle shifts in Earth's orbit and spin axis could have caused temperatures and sea levels to plummet, rendering the warm shallows that the Ediacaran biota called home uninhabitable. Others propose that the Ediacaran simply lost an evolutionary arms race to the next generation of animals, ones with teeth, claws, and hard shells that appear in the fossil record soon after. Perhaps these new anatomical innovations allowed predators to chomp and crunch their way through the soft body competition. While the jury is still out on the exact cause, what's clear is that the Ediacaran Garden of Eden was lost, making way for the next major chapter in life's story, the Cambrian explosion. In this evolutionary Big Bang, animal bodies rapidly diversified into a kaleidoscope of new forms, including many of the major anatomical blueprints still used by species today. This pattern of destruction and rebirth, of life pressing the reset button and constructing a new world from the rubble of the old, is one that's played out many times in our planet's past, and as we'll see, not even the mightiest titans like the dinosaurs were invincible to these world-changing cataclysms. But those are tales for another night. For now, as you lie here snug and safe, take a moment to marvel at the fact that you too are part of this ancient ongoing story. In your DNA is written the history of mass extinctions endured and overcome by your ancestors, an eternal flame of life passed down through innumerable generations. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, rest easy knowing you're the latest chapter in the most epic tale of survival this planet has ever known. Sweet dreams, my friend. I'll see you next time. As the Triassic world gave way to the Jurassic, dinosaurs began their ascent to dominance. The once lush forests thinned out as temperatures rose and rainfall patterns shifted. Bennettistalians and monkey puzzle trees, favourites of the large prosauropod dinosaurs, declined. In their place, conifers and ferns spread across the increasingly arid landscape. Early meat-eating dinosaurs like Chelophysis darted after skittering prey, their sleek forms well adapted for the chase. Primitive, small-bodied plant-eaters called ornithischians scampered between the legs of larger saurischian herbivores. These survivors, spared from the end Triassic extinction, represented lineages that would later spawn celebrities like Tyrannosaurus rex and Stegosaurus. But despite the great success of dinosaurs, the Jurassic was no easy street. The breakup of Pangaea continued, triggering massive earthquakes and volcanic eruptions along the fracturing edges. Oceans rushed in to fill the widening rifts, flooding lowlands and carving Europe and eastern North America into island archipelagos. On these isolated landmasses, dinosaurs evolved into surprising new forms. One such early island dweller was Celidosaurus, an early armoured dinosaur that trundled along the riverbanks of early Jurassic England some 193 million years ago. A distant cousin of famous plated and club-tailed dinosaurs like Ankylosaurus, Celidosaurus was a gentle browser with bony scutes embedded in its leathery skin. When threatened, it simply hunkered down, an armoured lump that was more trouble than it was worth to would-be predators. Celidosaurus was discovered in 1858 in seaside cliffs near Charmouth by James Harrison, a professional fossil collector. He sold the precious fossils to the eminent British paleontologist Richard Owen, the same man who later coined the name Dinosauria. Impressed by the exquisite preservation of the bones, which included skin impressions and stomach contents, Owen recognised them as something altogether new, an ancient reptile in armour. While dinosaurs were beginning their global conquest, in the seas, other great changes were afoot. Seafloors spreading from the widening Atlantic Ocean formed undersea mountain ranges, where hydrothermal vents gushed mineral-rich fluids. These oases nurtured thriving communities of tube worms, vent mussels and ghost white crabs, a secret world in the sunless depths. Swimming above were schools of fish that would have seemed quite alien to a modern observer. Ichthyosaurs, dolphin-like marine reptiles with conical teeth and dinner-plate eyes, chased belemnoid squid through the ancient surf. Long-necked plesiosaurs pumped their foreflippers in penguin-like unison, cruising slowly in pursuit of shoaling fish. The Jurassic oceans were a realm of both the familiar and the bizarre. Along the coast, some of the first true crocodiliforms basked on mudflats and prowled the salt marshes on 4 sprawling legs. Unlike their later kin, these were lean terrestrial predators, as swift and agile on land as in the water, and soaring overhead on leathery wings, the pterosaurs, flying reptiles of the Mesozoic, surveyed the scene with beady bird-like eyes. Among these aerial pioneers was Dimorphodon, a pigeon-sized pterosaur from the famous Blue Lias cliffs of Dorset, England. With a bulky head and a slender neck, Dimorphodon had a curiously lopsided appearance. Protruding from its beaked jaws was a set of fang-like teeth, perfect stilettos for snagging fish as it flew low over the shallow seas. Pterosaurs like Dimorphodon hint at the aerial mastery that was to come later in the Jurassic. As dinosaurs grew to tremendous sizes on land, pterosaurs followed suit in the skies, evolving into the largest flying animals of all time. But that, as they say, is a story for another day. So as we drift off into Jurassic dreams, let us marvel at the power of a world in flux. In the face of cataclysmic change, the shattering of a supercontinent, the searing breath of volcanism, the march of evolution, life finds a way. Survivors become dynasties unto themselves, spinning out endless forms most beautiful beneath an alien sun. Such is the wonder of the Jurassic, the crucible in which the modern world was forged. The Middle Jurassic saw the continued rise of the dinosaurs against a backdrop of sweltering heat and pungent vegetation. As rainfall patterns shifted and the supercontinent of Pangaea splintered further, once lush forests of towering conifers gave way to fern prairies that stretched from horizon to horizon. It was an alien world of unfamiliar plants, where early cycads and bennettitalians, an extinct order of palm-like seed plants, competed for precious water and nutrients. Into this transforming landscape strode the sauropods, the great long-necked dinosaurs that would become the largest land animals of all time. Descendants of the humble prosauropods of the late Triassic, the Middle Jurassic sauropods were spectacular evolutionary experiments in gigantism. By gulping down massive quantities of vegetation and fermenting it in their voluminous guts, they powered their colossal growth. One of the earliest examples of this trend was Barapasaurus, a primitive sauropod from the Kota Formation of India. At 18 meters long and weighing up to 12 tons, Barapasaurus was a staggering sight in its day, dwarfing the far more ancient prosauropods. But it was merely a herald of the true leviathans to come. Alongside the mighty sauropods, the flesh-eating theropod dinosaurs were also on the rise. Oceanosaurus, a razor-toothed predator from the Middle Jurassic of China, was a distant ancestor of celebrities like Velociraptor and Deinonychus. Though only known from a partial lower jaw, this tantalizing fossil points to the deepening roots of the fearsome dromaeosaur family tree. In the skies above, new kinds of pterosaurs took wing, having evolved from small, scampering forebears like Dimorphodon. These included the rhamphorhynchoids, or basal pterosaurs, which sported long tails and teeth in their slender jaws. Rhamphorhynchoids, like Janchangopterus from China, had wingspans of up to 1.5 meters, modest by later pterosaur standards, but impressive nonetheless. Life in the seas was equally vibrant and diverse. The ichthyosaurs, those sleek, predatory reptiles that so uncannily resembled modern dolphins and sharks, continued to thrive. One remarkable Middle Jurassic ichthyosaur was Ophthalmosaurus, an open-ocean cruiser with enormous eyes suited for capturing every last photon in the dim ocean depths. Its narrow, toothless snout suggests it used its long jaws to snag soft-bodied prey like squid and jellyfish. Gliding alongside the ichthyosaurs were the plesiosaurs, an eclectic array of long-necked marine reptiles. The Middle Jurassic saw the rise of early plesiosaurs like Peloniustes, ambush hunters with powerful jaws and conical teeth. As their fish and squid prey darted away, pliosaurs gave chase with 4 mighty flippers, churning the water to foam. The oceans were also home to a spectacular diversity of invertebrates, including coil-shelled ammonites, extinct relatives of modern nautilus. These free-swimming cephalopods came in a dizzying variety of shell shapes, from simple spirals to tightly wound whorls. Gliding through the water column on soft tentacles, ammonites were key players in the marine food web, both as predators and prey. All the while, in the background, the Earth itself was restless. Tectonic plates groaned and shifted, spawning chains of volcanic islands in their wake. Intense global warming, driven by greenhouse gases from the eruptions, caused sea levels to rise and inundate coastal plains. It was against this backdrop of a world in the throes of change that the dinosaurs, and with them the great age of reptiles, came into their own. So as we picture this long-vanished Jurassic Earth, with its misty fern prairies and teeming primeval seas, we are reminded that our world, for all its present-day wonders, is but one fleeting snapshot in an ever-unfolding cosmic dance. In the face of unrelenting change, life marches on, spinning out new forms and seizing new opportunities with every passing eon. Such is the resilience and creativity of nature, played out on the grandest of all scales. As the Middle Jurassic gave way to the late, the age of the giant sauropods approached its zenith. These colossal herbivores had evolved to take full advantage of the bountiful vegetation that blanketed the land, from the towering Araucaria pines to the lush thickets of cicadioids and tree ferns. By gulping down this fodder in tremendous quantity and digesting it slowly in their voluminous guts, they fueled bodies of almost unimaginable size. The reigning titans of this time were the diplodocids, sauropods instantly recognizable by their whiplash tails, pencil-like teeth and extraordinarily long necks. Among their ranks was Supersaurus, which stretched up to 33 meters from snout to tail tip, longer than a blue whale, the largest animal alive today. When Supersaurus reared up on its elephant-like hind legs to reach the highest leaves, it likely stood over 15 meters tall. Diplodocids had a curiously American distribution in the late Jurassic, known from the Morrison Formation that spans several western US states. It was here in Colorado that the famous bone wars between rival paleontologists Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope played out. The two bitter enemies raced to outdo each other in naming new dinosaurs, often based on the scantest of fossil evidence. One such creature was Apatosaurus, a diplodocid initially described by Marsh in 1877. 2 years later, Marsh coined another genus, Brontosaurus, for a slightly more complete specimen. It was only in the early 20th century that paleontologists realized the two skeletons likely represented the same genus, and Apatosaurus took priority. The beloved Brontosaurus faded into obsolescence, but a recent resurgence argues it should be resurrected after all. Not all the great sauropods were diplodocids, however. Brachiosaurus, another icon of the late Jurassic, belonged to the macronarian line. Sauropods generally with longer forelimbs and taller shoulders that allowed for a more elevated feeding posture. With its giraffe-like build and remarkably elongated neck, Brachiosaurus could have browsed among the very highest branches, plucking out the most succulent vegetation. While the herbivorous dinosaurs reached new extremes of size, their carnivorous counterparts kept pace. Allosaurus, the preeminent hunter of the late Jurassic, was a large theropod with a lethal battery of serrated teeth. Over 10 meters long and weighing up to 2 tons, Allosaurus likely hunted in cooperative packs to bring down even the bulkiest sauropod prey. But Allosaurus was not the only predator vying for Jurassic dominance. In Europe, the megalosaurids held sway, more primitive but equally formidable hunters with deep-set skulls and muscular, stocky builds. One of the largest was Torvosaurus, a heavily built bruiser that rivaled Allosaurus in size. Its massive, bone-crunching jaws and thick, powerful neck made it well-suited for tearing into the tough hides of its plant-eating quarry. In the seas, the pliosaurs, those fearsome marine crocodiles of the Jurassic, reached monstrous new proportions. Weighing up to 25 tons, Plesiosaurus was the apex predator of the late Jurassic oceans, capable of swallowing entire Plesiosaurus whole. With a head nearly 3 meters long and teeth the size of bananas, it must have been a terrifying sight as it cruised the shallow seas in search of prey. The late Jurassic skies, too, had their share of giants. Pterosaurs continued to evolve and diversify, spinning out a bewildering variety of forms, suited for every aerial niche imaginable. Among the most spectacular was Pterodactylus, a long-jawed flyer with elaborate crests protruding from its skull. These crests likely served a display function, allowing males to put on showy exhibitions to attract mates. The late Jurassic Earth, with its teeming hordes of giants on land, at sea and in the air, was in many ways the high watermark of the age of reptiles. The dinosaurs, marine reptiles and pterosaurs had reached unprecedented sizes and shapes, pushing biological possibility to its limit, and yet, unbeknownst to them, the sands of time were running out. In the dimly lit hinterlands scampering furtively beneath the feet of the dinosaurian lords were the first mammals, small nocturnal insectivores that largely kept to the shadows. Meek and unassuming though they were, these humble creatures would prove instrumental in shaping the course of life after the fall of the dinosaurs, but for now the great ruling reptiles remained ascendant, blissfully unaware of the cosmic dramas that were to unfold. So as we contemplate the raw majesty and exuberance of late Jurassic life, we are reminded of the impermanence of all things, even those that seem the surest and most indomitable. No empire, however mighty, is immune to the winds of change, and in a world where asteroids fall, continents rift and the very ground shifts beneath our feet, perhaps the smallest and least acclaimed among us are the most superbly equipped to adapt and endure. And so, 145 million years ago, the Jurassic period came to a close not with a bang, but a whimper. Quietly, almost imperceptibly, the vast seas withdrew and the steaming climate cooled. The soaring araucarias and lush tree ferns began their long retreat, ceding ground to a hardier stock of plants more tolerant of aridity. Among these floral pioneers were the angiosperms, flowering plants, an evolutionary novelty whose time had finally come, As the landscape transformed, so too did its inhabitants. The diplodocid sauropods, adapted for browsing the highest canopies of the vanished forests, found themselves ill-equipped for the new age. Their kind dwindled, giving way to the titanosaurs, stockier, small-headed herbivores with shorter necks and a more flexible diet. Slowly but surely the titanosaurs rose to global prominence, becoming the dominant herbivores of the Cretaceous. In the skies, too, a changing of the guard was underway. The long-tailed ramphorhynchoid pterosaurs, masters of the Jurassic skies, found themselves outcompeted by the pterodactyloids, larger, more streamlined flyers with shorter tails and longer necks. Chief among these were the ornithocheirids, oceanic gliders with wingspans of up to 6 meters, the size of a small plane. Riding the warm trade winds, they ranged across whole ocean basins in search of fish. On land, the meat-eating dinosaurs were in flux. In the northern continents, tyrannosaurs began their meteoric rise to the top of the food chain, spinning out increasingly large and formidable predators. One of the earliest was Eotyrannus, a lithe hunter with blade-like teeth and elongated forelimbs tipped with sickle claws. Though a far cry from the monstrous T-Rex of the late Cretaceous, it set the evolutionary stage for the tyrant kings to come. Meanwhile, in the southern land masses, the Carcharodontosaurs held sway. These shark-toothed carnivores were among the largest of all theropods, with deep skulled heads and muscular, stocky builds. Giganotosaurus, the most famous of their ilk, rivaled T-Rex in size, measuring up to 13 meters long and weighing over 6 tons. Its fossil remains, discovered in 1993 in Patagonia, Argentina, electrified the paleontological world. As the age of reptiles marched on, the seas too witnessed the rise of a new order. The ichthyosaurs, sleek predators of the Triassic and Jurassic, began to dwindle and disappear, their ecological roles usurped by the mosasaurs. These seagoing lizards, evolved from land-lubbing ancestors, were superbly adapted for an aquatic existence, with flipper-like limbs and powerful fluked tails. Some, like Tylosaurus, grew up to 15 meters long, true sea monsters of the Cretaceous deep, all the while as if on the edges of perception. As the night deepens, let us drift further back through the mists of time, long before the age of giant mammals and saber-toothed cats, to an even more ancient and alien world, the Eocene epoch. If we could step into this bygone era some 50 million years ago, we would find ourselves in a strikingly different Earth, one far warmer and more verdant than today. In the balmy forests of Eocene Germany, the tiny dawn horse Propylaeotherium browsed on soft leaves, standing no taller than a small dog. This diminutive creature bore little resemblance to its modern descendants, with 4 splayed toes on its front feet and 3 on its hind. Yet from such humble beginnings, the mighty horse family would one day gallop across the grasslands of every continent save Antarctica. High above the proto-horse in the canopy scampered Darwinius, a lemur-like primate with striking goggle eyes. Discovered exceptionally preserved in the Messel Pit fossil site, this remarkable specimen was hailed as a missing link in early primate evolution when unveiled to great fanfare in 2009. While Darwinius's exact evolutionary relationship remains debated, its fossil nonetheless provides an exquisite glimpse into a pivotal chapter of our own mammalian origins. Eocene Europe was also stalked by a very different kind of creature, Gastornis, a towering, flightless predatory bird. At 2 meters tall, this fearsome avian boasted a wickedly hooked beak, well suited for tearing flesh. For decades, paleontologists assumed Gastornis was a menacing carnivore, but closer analysis of its beak shape and chemical composition hinted at a more placid plant-eating lifestyle. The terror bird may have been less terrifying than once thought, yet the warm, humid greenhouse of the Eocene would not last forever. As the epoch drew to a close, subtle but profound changes were afoot. In the oceans, tiny seashells deposited on ancient seafloors captured a telling chemical signature, a shift in oxygen isotope ratios that betrayed a long-term cooling trend. Tectonic forces were conspiring to alter the very face of the planet. The gradual breakup of the supercontinent Gondwana had severed the land bridge between South America and Antarctica some 35 million years ago. Frigid ocean currents now swirled unimpeded around an isolated Antarctica, allowing a nascent ice cap to coalesce at the southern pole. As ice sheets grew, they locked up vast volumes of water, and global sea levels began to fall. On land, the fossil record spoke of a creeping revolution. In the northern Great Plains of the United States, paleontologists like Donald Prothero and Robert Emery unearthed a dramatic shift in mammalian teeth between the Eocene and Oligocene layers. Older deposits held mammals with low-crowned teeth suited for soft leaves, while younger strata harboured high-crowned grazers adapted for tough grasses. The age of the browser opened forests was gradually yielding to a new epoch of open grasslands. This transition would spell the demise of many archaic evolutionary lineages. Gastornis and Darwinius, so well adapted to Eocene jungles, would vanish as their worlds faded away. But for every door evolution closed, it opened others. The Eocene-Oligocene transition saw the rise of many modern mammal groups, from long-legged horses galloping across emerging plains to nimble monkeys swinging through the trees. As the world turned and climates shifted, life was forever changing, adapting, evolving. The Eocene greenhouse of Propylaeotherium and Darwinius had given way to a cooler Oligocene realm, one in which grass and grazers reigned supreme, and still the carousel of time turned on, the waltz of life and death playing out in an ever-shifting tempo. So as we lie here in the still of the night, let us marvel at the twists and turns of life's long, improbable journey. Each vanished epoch, each long-lost species, is but a thread in the immense and intricate tapestry of Earth's history. The Eocene world may be lost to the ages, but its echoes resound through every fibre of our being, every beat of our mammalian hearts. The creatures of that distant time live on in the very marrow of our bones. As slumber beckons, let us dream of misty Eocene forests and the fantastical beings that once called them home. And let us carry that sense of wonder into our waking lives, remembering that we are but a brief flicker in the long, scintillating story of life on Earth. Good night, and sweet dreams of prehistoric worlds long past. But the saga of life's unfolding did not end with the Eocene's passing. Even as the world cooled and grasslands spread, a new age was dawning, the Miocene. Some 23 million years ago, in the heart of what is now Pakistan, a small, unassuming creature nibbled on fruit in the dappled shade of a tree. Little did Pachycetus know it was embarking on an astounding evolutionary journey, one that would carry its descendants from land to sea. Pachycetus was no ordinary mammal, it was a cetacean, an early whale. But this ancient cetacean would scarcely be recognizable as a whale to modern eyes. It had 4 legs, a long snout, and a powerful tail, more wolf than whale. Only subtle clues in its anatomy, like the position of its eyes and ears, hinted at its aquatic destiny. As the Miocene unfolded, Pachycetus' descendants would gradually abandon land for the allure of the sea. Ambulocetus, the walking whale, took tentative steps into coastal shallows some 48 million years ago, its webbed feet testament to a life at the water's edge. Cuchicetus dived still deeper into aquatic realms, its elongated body streamlined for chasing fish. By 40 million years ago, primitive whales like Basilosaurus had severed their earthly ties entirely. Basilosaurus was a serpentine leviathan some 15 to 20 meters long, undulating through warm Eocene seas with sinuous grace. Its forelimbs had dwindled to small flippers, while a powerful fluke propelled its long body through the water. The transformation from land mammal to master of the seas was nearly complete. This astounding metamorphosis is chronicled in a series of spectacular fossils unearthed in Pakistan and Egypt. Here, preserved in the rock, is a snapshot sequence of one of evolution's most profound makeovers. Each fossil species from Pachycetus to Basilosaurus is a frame in the fluid film of cetacean evolution. And what a story these stones tell. They speak of a world in flux, where land mammals return to the seas that had spawned them eons before. They whisper of the power of evolution to mold and remake life in endlessly inventive ways, adapting organisms to fill every conceivable niche. From the fur-lined ears of Pachycetus to the sleek flukes of Basilosaurus, each subtle change is a testament to life's vast, unhurried patience. Even as whales conquered the oceans, the Miocene world was alive with evolutionary innovation. The first elephants, Prodeinotherium, lumbered across the land, their tusks curved downward for plucking tender shoots. Deinotherians were not alone in their bulk. This was the golden age of giant mammals, from immense entelodonts or hell pigs to bear dogs like Amphition. In the air above soared Pelagornis sandersi, an enormous seabird with a wingspan rivaling small planes. Yet as ever in Earth's history, change was the only constant. The Miocene too would pass, its unique assemblage of creatures fading into memory and stone. But their stories endure, whispered in the dreaming bones of the fossil record. Each vanished species is a reminder of the endless forms life has taken, the myriad paths it has wandered. As we drift now through prehistory's hall of mirrors, each epoch reflecting and refracting the last, let us find solace in the knowledge that we are a part of something immense and ancient beyond reckoning. The Miocene beasts may be gone, but we carry their legacy within us, in every whale that breaches and elephant that rumbles. We are all of us branches of life's vast, ever-growing tree, our roots reaching down to the very dawn of complex life. So let the poetry of Pakicetus and its kin lead us into dreamland, where evolution's boundless creativity may shape our slumbering thoughts. And when we wake, may we carry that sense of connection and wonder with us, seeing in each creature a fellow voyager on this improbable odyssey of existence. The Miocene may be lost in time's abyss, but its echoes will forever sing in the symphony of life on Earth. Yet even as the age of whales and wonder drew to a close, a new epoch was emerging from the sea of deep time. The Pliocene world, some 5.3 to 2.6 million years ago, would see the stage set for the rise of our own improbable lineage. In the sunlit shallows off the coast of Peru, a strange, shaggy beast lumbered in the waves, Piscogavialis, one of the last gavialoid crocodilians. Piscogavialis was a relic of a bygone age, a survivor from the time of archaic cetaceans and giant dinotheres. With its slender snout and interlocking teeth, this 7-metre crocodilian was supremely adapted for fishing, snapping up anchovies and sardines in the rich Pliocene seas. But Piscogavialis's world was changing, and its kind would not endure the shifting currents of time. Even as this archaic crocodilian hunted off primeval Peru, a new power was rising in the primate realm. In the wooded valleys of East Africa, a small, unassuming ape descended from the trees and began to walk upright across the savannah. Ardipithecus ramidus, at 4.4 million years old, stood at the base of the hominid family tree, the ancient root from which our own species would one day flower. Ardipithecus was a mosaic of the archaic and the derived, a glimpse of evolution in action. It retained the grasping big toe of its tree-dwelling ancestors, yet its pelvis was reshaped for bipedal locomotion. In Ardipithecus we see the incipient stirrings of what would become the human odyssey, the first tentative steps on an epic evolutionary journey. As Ardipithecus trod gingerly through Pliocene woodlands, it shared its world with a panoply of remarkable creatures. Ancilotherium, a bizarre calicothere or hoofed gorilla, reared up on its hind limbs to browse on high branches. Bear-like Agriotherium, the last of a dynasty of mighty hemicyanid carnivores, stalked the plains in search of prey. The Pliocene was a world in transition, where the archaic rubbed shoulders with the new. This was the crucible in which our own genus, Homo, would be forged. By 2.8 million years ago, hominins like Homo habilis were chipping crude stone tools, harnessing technology to shape their world. These early humans stood at the threshold of a new age, one in which culture and creativity would become the driving forces of evolution. Yet even as our ancestors rose to prominence, the Pliocene world was fading. The great evolutionary experiments of ages past, the chalicotheres, hemicyanids, and gavialoid crocodilians, would disappear, victims of a cooling, changing planet. But their stories live on, recorded in the rocks and in the bones of their evolutionary successors. As we prepare to enter the realm of dreams, let us take a moment to ponder the improbable journey that led to our own existence. From the Peruvian shores that sheltered Piscogavialis to the East African valleys that nurtured Ardipithecus, each Pliocene tale is a thread in the vast tapestry of life's history. We are the inheritors of that grand evolutionary saga, the improbable outcome of 4 billion years of ceaseless change. So let the ancient rhythms of the Pliocene lull us into slumber, secure in the knowledge that we are part of something immense, something with roots reaching back to the very dawn of life on Earth. And as we dream, may we walk for a time with Ardipithecus in those primeval forests, feeling the kinship of deep time that binds all living things. The Pliocene may be vanished, but it echoes within us still, a reminder of the long, unlikely road that led to the present moment. As the Pliocene yielded to the Pleistocene some 2.6 million years ago, the world stood on the brink of a climatic precipice. Subtle shifts in Earth's orbit and rotation were conspiring to plunge the planet into a dizzying oscillation of ice ages, each frigid epoch punctuated by brief, balmy respites. This was an age of flux, where adaptability was the key to survival. For the African savanna, the cooling and drying climate heralded an expansion of grasslands at the expense of once verdant forests. On this stage, an evolutionary drama millions of years in the making was reaching its denouement, the emergence of our own species, Homo sapiens. By 200,000 years ago, anatomically modern humans were stalking the East African plains, the inheritors of a legacy stretching back to Ardipithecus and beyond. These early humans were creatures of remarkable ingenuity and resilience, with a suite of unparalleled cognitive abilities, language, abstract reasoning, and technological inventiveness. They were uniquely poised to thrive in a world of constant change. As they spread across Africa and Eurasia, they left their mark in the form of exquisite cave paintings, intricate bone carvings, and sophisticated stone tools. Yet Homo sapiens were not alone in this Pleistocene world. They shared the Earth with a host of other human species, evolutionary cousins adapted to life in diverse corners of the globe. In the icy reaches of Europe and Western Asia, the Neanderthals reigned supreme, stocky hunters built for the rigours of the cold. On the Indonesian island of Flores, the diminutive Homo floresiensis, affectionately known as hobbits, eked out a living on a remote volcanic outpost. Each of these human species was a unique evolutionary experiment, a testament to the adaptability and flexibility of the hominid lineage. But as the Pleistocene wore on, a new factor would come into play: competition from Homo sapiens. As our ancestors spread across the world, they would come into contact and likely conflict with their archaic human kin. The results of these encounters are written in the genes of living people. Today, many of us carry a small percentage of Neanderthal or Denisovan DNA, a genetic echo of ancient interbreeding events. These molecular fossils speak of a tangled human family tree, where species boundaries were often blurred by the complex realities of coexistence. Yet despite their sophisticated cultures and technologies, the world of the Pleistocene humans was a challenging one. Megafaunal mammals like woolly mammoths, giant ground sloths, and saber-toothed cats roamed the earth, each species uniquely adapted to the rigours of an ever-shifting climate. But as the Pleistocene gave way to the Holocene some 11,700 years ago, many of these magnificent beasts would vanish in a wave of extinctions that swept the globe. The reasons for this megafaunal extinction event are complex and still debated, but the spread of Homo sapiens likely played a key role. As our ancestors honed their hunting skills and expanded into new environments, they may have placed unsustainable pressure on vulnerable megafaunal populations already stressed by shifting climates. The disappearance of these keystone species would have profound and cascading effects on the ecosystems they once inhabited. As we drift off to sleep, let us dream of this lost Pleistocene world, where humans and mammoths walked side by side under glacial skies. Each extinct species, from the Neanderthals to the giant ground sloths, is a reminder of the complexity and fragility of life on our ever-changing planet. Their stories may have ended, but they endure in the collective memory of Earth's long history. And let us not forget the remarkable story of our own species, which rose from humble beginnings to become the dominant force shaping the biosphere today. As we slumber, may we reflect on the long, improbable journey that led us to this moment, and the responsibility we bear as stewards of a world we have so profoundly altered. The Pleistocene may be gone, but its legacy lives on in every fibre of our being, a testament to the power of evolution to shape life in all its incredible diversity. With the dawn of the Holocene epoch some 11,700 years ago, the world had emerged from the climatic crucible of the Pleistocene into a new age of relative stability. The great ice sheets were in retreat, and sea levels were rising as meltwater returned to the oceans. For the first time in nearly 2 million years, the Earth was free from the vice grip of cyclical glaciations. This new epoch would come to be defined by a single species, Homo sapiens, by the early Holocene. As Benjamin, the last known thylacine, paced the confines of his enclosure at the Hobart Zoo in Tasmania, he couldn't have known that he would come to symbolise the plight of so many lost species in the modern age. The thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian tiger, was a remarkable marsupial that once roamed the wilds of Australia and New Guinea. With its distinctive striped coat and wolf-like appearance, it was a formidable predator that had survived for millions of years. But in just a few short decades in the early 20th century, relentless hunting and habitat destruction drove the species to the brink of extinction. Benjamin was captured in 1933 and spent the last 3 years of his life in captivity, the unwitting final representative of his kind. On a cold night in September 1936, Benjamin passed away alone in his cage, and with him, an entire branch of the tree of life withered and fell. The story of the thylacine is a poignant reminder of how quickly and irrevocably we can lose the rich tapestry of life that has evolved on this planet over billions of years. Sadly, Benjamin's tale is not an isolated one. In the mere blink of an eye on geological timescales, the actions of one species, our own, have unleashed a wave of extinctions that some scientists have dubbed the sixth mass extinction. While the causes of past mass extinctions were cataclysmic events, like asteroid impacts and massive volcanic eruptions, today the driving forces are largely of our own making. As the human population has soared and our technology has advanced, we have transformed the face of the Earth in unprecedented ways. Vast swathes of forest have been cleared for agriculture, mining, and urban development, fragmenting and destroying the habitats of countless species. We have hunted animals to extinction for food, fur, and other products, from the magnificent great auk of the North Atlantic to the gentle Caribbean monk seal. We have introduced invasive species to new environments, where they have often outcompeted and displaced native wildlife, and we have pumped pollutants and greenhouse gases into the air and water, altering the delicate balance of ecosystems and climate that has sustained life for millions of years. The scope and scale of the changes we have wrought are staggering. A recent report by the United Nations found that up to 1 million plant and animal species are now at risk of extinction, many within decades due to human activities. From the majestic Sumatran tiger to the colourful Spix's macaw, the web of life is fraying at an alarming rate. And with each species that vanishes, we lose not only a unique and irreplaceable product of evolution, but also the vital ecological roles they play and the potential benefits they may hold for medicine, agriculture, and other human endeavours. But even in the face of such grim statistics, there is still hope. Around the world, scientists, conservationists, and concerned citizens are working tirelessly to stem the tide of extinctions and protect what remains of our planet's biodiversity. In some cases, these efforts have brought species back from the very brink, like the California condor, which was down to just 22 individuals in the 1980s, but now numbers over 500 thanks to captive breeding and reintroduction programs. Other initiatives aim to protect and restore critical habitats, from the Amazon rainforest to the Great Barrier Reef, recognizing that these ecosystems are not only home to an astonishing array of species, but also provide essential services like clean air and water, carbon storage, and natural resources that sustain human communities. Still, others seek to tackle the root causes of extinctions, promoting sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, and other practices that can help us live in greater harmony with the natural world. As we lay here in the quiet of the night, it is worth reflecting on our own place in this remarkable story of life on Earth. For all of our technological prowess and dominion over the planet, we are still just one species among millions, all intricately connected in the great web of existence. The fate of the thylacine, the passenger pigeon, and so many others is a sobering reminder of the fragility and impermanence of even the most successful and abundant forms of life. But it is also a call to action, a reminder of our responsibility as stewards of this incredible planet that we call home. By working to protect and restore the diversity of life in all its forms, from the tiniest microbe to the mightiest mammal, we are not only safeguarding the wonders of the natural world for future generations, but also ensuring the resilience and adaptability of life itself in the face of an uncertain future. As we drift off to sleep, let us hold in our hearts a sense of reverence and humility for the astonishing story of a life on Earth, a story that stretches back billions of years and has weathered countless cataclysms and transformations. And let us dream of a world where the haunting eyes of the last Thylacine are not a symbol of loss and despair, but a reminder of the beauty, tenacity and resilience of the natural world, and our own power to shape its future for the better. In the end, the story of Earth's mass extinctions is not just a chronicle of death and destruction, but a testament to the indomitable spirit of life itself. Time and again, in the face of unimaginable adversity, life has found a way to adapt, evolve and flourish anew. From the ashes of the end Permian extinction emerged the first dinosaurs, whose descendants would go on to rule the planet for over 150 million years. And from the devastation of the end Cretaceous impact, the tiny, unassuming mammals that had scurried beneath the feet of the dinosaurs for so long seized their chance to diversify and thrive, ultimately giving rise to the astonishing variety of life we see around us today, including our own species. As we contemplate the uncertain future that lies ahead, it is worth remembering that we too are a part of this grand evolutionary story. Like all those who came before us, we are subject to the same forces of change and upheaval that have shaped the history of life on Earth. But we are also uniquely positioned to learn from that history and to use our knowledge and ingenuity to chart a new course, one that values and nurtures the incredible diversity of life in all its forms. So let us take heart in the resilience and creativity of nature and in our own capacity for compassion, foresight and action. Let us work to build a world where the story of the Thylacine is not a tragic footnote, but a cautionary tale and a call to arms, reminding us of the preciousness and precariousness of life and the awesome responsibility we bear as its stewards. As we surrender to the embrace of sleep, let us dream of a future where the wonders of the natural world are not just memories and fossils, but living, breathing testaments to the enduring power and majesty of life on Earth. A future where our own species learns to live in harmony with the myriad other forms of life that share this planet, and where the story of evolution continues to unfold in all its breathtaking beauty and complexity. For in the end, the history of Earth's mass extinctions is not just a story of loss and tragedy, but of hope and possibility. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, life finds a way to persevere, to adapt, and to flourish anew. And it is an invitation to each and every one of us to be a part of that story, to help write the next chapter in the incredible, ongoing saga of life on this pale blue dot we call home. So let us embrace the darkness of the night and the quiet stillness that envelops us, knowing that we are all a part of something vastly greater than ourselves. And let us dream of a world where the legacy we leave is not one of destruction and extinction, but of wonder, diversity, and the enduring triumph of life in all its magnificent forms. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with the beauty and resilience of the natural world. As the warm, shallow seas of the Eocene gave way to the cooler climes of the Oligocene, life on Earth found itself in the midst of yet another great transformation. Across the lush, forested landscapes of this distant epoch, a marvellous menagerie of creatures held sway. There were the diminutive dawn horses, scarcely larger than a house cat, delicately picking their way through the underbrush on their multi-toed hooves. High above, the forebears of today's monkeys and apes clambered through the canopy, their lemur-like faces peering out from behind the foliage. And stalking the forest floor below were the terror birds, towering flightless predators with long hooked beaks perfect for tearing flesh. But as the ages turned, a great cooling began to settle over the globe. Just what caused this chilling trend is a question that has long captivated the minds of scientists. Some point to the isolation of Antarctica, a great southern continent slowly drifting away from its neighbours, encircling itself in swirling currents and frigid seas. As it journeyed ever further from the warmer climes of the north, kilometres thick glaciers began to accumulate across its surface, locking away great volumes of the Earth's water and lowering sea levels the world over. Others propose that this was a time of tremendous geological upheaval, as the Indian subcontinent collided with Asia, thrusting up the vast Himalayan mountain range. As these lofty peaks rose to touch the sky, they began to scrub carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, the Earth's great greenhouse gas slowly dwindling, allowing a cooler, drier climate to prevail. Whatever the ultimate cause, the fossils tell a story of tremendous change rippling across the globe. In the American West, intrepid researchers like Donald Prothero have pieced together this tale from the very rocks themselves. As the wet forests of the Eocene withered and receded, in their place sprang open grasslands and savanna, a sea of swaying green stretching from horizon to horizon. The once ubiquitous palms and cycads found themselves pushed to the margins, huddling in shrinking pockets of forest, as hardier plants like grasses and herbs began their relentless spread. For the animals of this time, this shifting landscape presented both great challenge and opportunity. The mighty brontosaurs, distant cousins of the horse, found their favoured food plants dwindling, their impressive bulk and armament of horns suddenly ill-suited for these changing climes. But for others, like the nimble horses, this expanding realm of open grassland was a veritable paradise. Longer legs and larger, more complex teeth evolved to take advantage of the tough vegetation, allowing groups like the oreodonts, a clan of sheep-sized, cud-chewing mammals, to proliferate in tremendous numbers. It was amidst this backdrop of transformation that one of the most iconic mammals of the age began its gradual decline toward extinction. Merotherium, an ancient relative of modern elephants, once roamed Africa in great herds, its size and tusks offering ample protection against predators. But as the Eocene waned, shifting rain patterns and cooling temperatures began to fragment its favoured forest habitat. Populations became isolated in shrinking pockets of woodland, slowly dwindling as food and breeding grounds grew scarce. In a few short million years, this mighty beast, a fixture of the African landscape for so long, would fade forever into memory, leaving behind only scattered teeth and bones for future generations to puzzle over. So it was that life on Earth entered a new age, the hothouse world of the Eocene slipping away like a half-remembered dream. In its place emerged a cooler, drier realm, where the first glimmers of our modern ecosystems began to take shape. The hardy grasses and herbs that first gained a foothold in this time would go on to carpet vast swathes of every continent, forming the great savannas and prairies we know today. And the horses and oreodonts, those early pioneers of the open plains, would give rise to myriad forms, grazing and galloping their way across this brave new world. But of course, the saga of life on Earth is far from over. The Oligocene was but another chapter in an ever-unfolding story, the ceaseless dance of climate and geology, competition and adaptation playing out across the ages. As the world turned onward toward the present day, new trials and opportunities awaited, the mammals rising to dominance as the age of the dinosaurs receded ever further into the past. And so we leave the Eocene-Oligocene world behind, its vanished forests and forgotten beasts fading into the mists of deep time. Like so many lost worlds before it, it exists now only as a ghostly assemblage of rock and bone, a puzzle to be deciphered by scientists and marvelled at by the curious. But in those traces, that enduring legacy etched in stone, we find a window into the very history of life itself, a reminder of the endless capacity of nature to reinvent itself in the face of change. And as we drift off to sleep, our minds filled with visions of tiny horses and terror birds, we can take comfort in the knowledge that no matter what the future may hold, life, in all its tenacious beauty, will surely find a way. As the world continued its stately transformations, a new epoch was dawning, the Quaternary, the age of ice and humankind. The transition was a slow one, the gradual cooling that began in the Oligocene eventually culminating in a series of cyclic glaciations, vast sheets of ice spreading across the northern hemisphere with each pulse. These were the days of the Pleistocene megafauna, those giant beasts that have captured imaginations for centuries. There were the mammoths and mastodons, great shaggy elephants adapted to the chill with layers of thick fur and subcutaneous fat. The saber-toothed cats armed with blade-like canines, capable of bringing down prey many times their size. The giant ground sloths, some species weighing as much as an Asian elephant, lumbering through the forests on their massive clawed feet. For millions of years these titans ruled the Pleistocene landscape, thriving in the oscillating rhythm of glacial advance and retreat. But then, sometime around 50,000 years ago, something began to change. Across the world, from the frozen steppes of Eurasia to the lush plains of Australia, these magnificent creatures started to disappear. The question of just what happened to the Pleistocene megafauna has been one of the great debates of paleontology. For decades, scientists have grappled with the evidence, proposing a host of different theories to explain this dramatic die-off. Some point to the shifting climate itself, the world slowly warming as the last great ice age began to loosen its grip. As temperatures rose and rainfall patterns shifted, the habitats these animals had adapted to for so long started to change, the mix of plants and prey species transforming around them. Perhaps, like so many victims of climate change before them, they simply couldn't adapt fast enough, their populations dwindling as the world moved on without them. Others placed the blame squarely on another new arrival on the scene: humans. Our ancestors, having spread across the globe and developed sophisticated hunting technology, may have played a key role in the megafauna's decline. With their spears and pit traps, early people could bring down even the mightiest of beasts, and some researchers believe overhunting may have tipped the balance for species already stressed by shifting climates. Of course, the true story is likely a complex interplay of many factors: climate, predation, competition, and perhaps even disease, all playing a part in the eventual demise of these incredible animals. But amidst all the theorizing and debate, there is one thing we can say for certain. The loss of the Pleistocene megafauna was a profound event in the history of our planet. These were animals that had thrived for millions of years, surviving countless climatic upheavals and ecological shifts. Their sudden disappearance left gaping holes in ecosystems across the world, the repercussions of which are still being unraveled by scientists today. And yet, even in extinction, these creatures continue to captivate and inspire. Every fossil unearthed, every preserved trackway or frozen carcass offers a tantalizing glimpse into a lost world, a window into an era when giants walked the earth. Take, for instance, the story of Dima, a woolly mammoth calf discovered by a gold miner in the icy reaches of Siberia. Dima died over 40,000 years ago, at just 6 to 12 months of age, but the permafrost preserved his body in astounding detail. From his tiny milk tusks to the pollen grains in his stomach, Dima provided researchers with an unprecedented look at mammoth biology and ecology, a snapshot of Pleistocene life frozen in time. Or consider the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles, one of the world's most famous fossil sites. Here, over the course of the last 50,000 years, countless animals became mired in the sticky asphalt, their struggles to escape only drawing in predators and scavengers to suffer the same fate. The result is an incredible cross-section of Pleistocene life, from towering mammoths and mastodons to snarling dire wolves and saber-toothed cats, all preserved together in a macabre tableau. For the scientists who study these remains, each fossil is a precious clue, a tiny piece of a vast and intricate puzzle. Through their tireless work, measuring bones, analysing teeth, reconstructing ancient DNA, they are slowly bringing the Pleistocene back to life, painting an ever richer picture of this vanished world and the incredible beasts that once called it home. And for the rest of us, these fossils serve as a powerful reminder of the majesty and fragility of life on Earth. They are a testament to nature's endless creativity, its ability to conjure up creatures beyond our wildest dreams. But they are also a warning, a stark illustration of the precarious balance in which all life exists and the devastating consequences when that balance is upset. As we lay here in the stillness of the night, our minds drifting through the eons, it's hard not to feel a sense of awe and humility in the face of such antiquity. The Pleistocene megafauna may be gone, but their story is far from over. In the fossilized remnants of their lives, in the echoes of their existence that still reverberate through our world, they continue to teach and to inspire, inviting us to marvel at the incredible journey of the life on this planet we call home. And so, as we let the soft embrace of sleep slowly envelop us, we can take comfort in the knowledge that we are part of something greater, a tiny thread in the vast tapestry of life that stretches back billions of years. The Pleistocene giants may have vanished, but their legacy endures, a reminder of the wonder and resilience of nature in an ever-changing world. As the Permian period drew to a close some 252 million years ago, the churning seas and windswept land teemed with the extraordinary creatures of their time. Fanged and saber-toothed gorgonopsians, monstrous predators with dog-like profiles, lunged at prey across ancient floodplains. Bulbous, waddling herbivores like moschops, an ungainly 2-metre synapsid with a tiny head perched upon a barrel-shaped torso, munched on hardy seed ferns. Dragonflies with wingspans the length of a human arm hummed over towering lycopsid trees in the steamy coal forests. Yet beneath this bustling veneer, the world was already in peril. Over in Siberia, one of the most extensive volcanic regions known in Earth's history had begun to awaken, initiating an eruption sequence that would persist for nearly 2 million years. Along an area now known as the Siberian Traps, lava gurgled to the surface through numerous fissures, blanketing the land in glowing molten basalt. With each passing century, these relentless flows released staggering volumes of carbon dioxide, methane, and other noxious gases into the atmosphere. As these volcanic gases accumulated, they warmed the global climate dramatically. Average temperatures soared by an estimated 10 degrees Celsius. In the sun-baked tropics, conditions likely became too hot for most life to endure. But warming was only part of the devastating sequence of events. All that carbon dioxide also dissolved into the oceans, turning them increasingly acidic and depleted of oxygen. The once temperate waters grew hot and stagnant, poisoning marine life. Paleontologists can read this unfolding catastrophe in the rocks, quite literally. The telltale signs of this dying world are etched in distinctive patterns and layers long frozen in time. It took the observant eye of geologists like Alexei Pavlov and his colleagues to piece together the clues. Trekking through the remote Siberian wilderness, they meticulously tracked the lava layers and collected samples that revealed this long-lost volcanic apocalypse. Through careful chemical analyses and dating techniques, Pavlov's team reconstructed the lethal sequence: surging carbon dioxide, spiking global temperatures, stagnating oceans starved of oxygen. They even detected spikes of carbon-12, a light isotope associated with volcanic eruptions, and massive releases of methane from the ocean floor. All the fingerprints pointed to a world spinning rapidly out of balance. As the oceans gasped their last breaths, the effects spilled onto land. With temperatures soaring and the water cycle thrown into chaos, lush forests shriveled away, leaving barren plains prone to erosion and drifting soils. Animals crowded around dwindling streams and lakes, desperate for moisture in the ever-hotter world. The fossil remains found in these now arid basins paint a grim picture of the end Permian's final days. In the hardest-hit areas, nearly every species would vanish, never to be seen again. Trilobites, those ancient armoured denizens of the sea that had scuttled along the ocean floor for 270 million years, disappeared in the blink of a geological eye, felled by waters they could no longer tolerate. Rugose corals, masters of reef building since the dawn of fish, succumbed to the acidifying seas, their living kaleidoscope of colours fading out. On land, the Gorgonopsians and their kin fared no better, growing scarce and then extinct in the collapsing ecosystems. By the time the eruptions waned and the climate began to stabilise, the damage was already done. In the space of just 60,000 years, 95% of all life had been wiped out, the greatest dying our planet has ever known. It would take tens of millions of years for biodiversity to recover its previous glory. In some senses, the world had been reset to an earlier primordial state. The grand Permian experiment in radical evolutionary forms had been erased, opening the stage for new kinds of organisms to emerge and flourish. As the Triassic period dawned, the Gorgonopsians and their relatives blinked out, never to be seen again. But one unassuming group of survivors held the keys to the future: the archosaurs, ancestors of the dinosaurs. Though few would have guessed it in those tenuous early years, these humble creatures contained within them the potential for 150 million years of global domination ahead. From the ashes of the great dying, the improbable reign of the terrible lizards was about to begin. Yet as we drift off tonight, the lesson imparted by that ancient Permian twilight bears reflecting on. Mass extinctions are not polite. They tear down the old order without prejudice or mercy. But in the void left behind, they also clear the way for new kinds of creativity, for ambitious evolutionary experiments that push the boundaries of what life can be. In destruction lies the seeds of reinvention, a cyclic dance that has shaped our world for over 540 million years. And so the question hangs in the air as we slip into dreams. What or who will arise to fill the spaces we leave behind? Only time, that impartial arbiter, can reveal the answer. As the Cretaceous world faded into the Paleogene, our tiny mammalian ancestors emerged from the shadows to inherit a world forever changed. The once ubiquitous dinosaurs, who had dominated for over 150 million years, had vanished in a geological instant, taking with them the flying pterosaurs and coil-shelled ammonites of the ancient seas. In their absence, a new cast of characters would rise to fill the vacant roles in a production billions of years in the making. Among the first on the scene were the terror birds, flightless avian predators that would grow to over 2 meters tall. With powerful beaks and taloned feet, they were swift and deadly hunters, pursuing the early horses and miniature camels that grazed the expanding grasslands. The balmy greenhouse climate of the Eocene saw tropical forests spread across much of the globe, abuzz with insects and echoing with the calls of lemur-like primates. But as with all the acts that came before, change was coming to upset the balance. Premonitions could be found in the White River Badlands of the North American West, where paleontologists like Donald Prothero would later uncover a treasure trove of fossils spanning this pivotal time. The lush Eocene strata were capped by a stark shift to the wind-blown sediments of the Oligocene, when global temperatures plunged and Antarctica froze over into a glacial vault at the bottom of the world. The cooling climate favoured a new lifestyle out on the expanding prairies and steppes. Prothero and his colleagues found evidence of the winners and losers in this shift, the fossils of those who couldn't adapt to littering the eroded slopes. The rhino-like brontotheres with their bizarre forked horns, once at home in the sultry jungles, faded away. In their place arose the true ruminants like cattle and deer, their complex stomachs allowing them to extract nutrients from the tough prairie grasses. Changes were afoot in the oceans as well. The archaic whale-like basilosaurs that cruised the Eocene seas, some over 15 meters long, gave way to smaller modern whales and dolphins. The toothed and filter-feeding varieties we know today, like sperm whales and humpbacks, proliferated in the increasingly productive seas. With each passing epoch, subtle shifts in climate, vegetation and geography were pulling the strings, deciding which lineages would endure and which would fall through the cracks of time. The curtain would fall again on this act with the dawn of the Pleistocene, when a wave of extinctions swept away many of the magnificent beasts of the Ice Age. Prothero and generations of fossil hunters have walked in the footsteps of giants in the sands of the American West. Camels and horses ironically disappearing from their ancestral homelands, mammoths and mastodons that shook the ground, and saber-toothed cats that dragged them down. The causes are still debated, perhaps a combination of overhunting by early humans, climate instability and even disease. The pathos of lost giants is keenly felt with some of the stunning specimens left behind as clues. There's the baby mammoth Liuba, discovered by a Siberian reindeer herder, her skin and tiny toenails still intact after 42,000 years, entombed in the permafrost. Or the Shasta ground sloth found in a lava tube in California, their final meals of juniper twigs and grasses still preserved in their mouths and stomachs. And so it goes, the wheel of fortune turning round and round through epochs and eras, the players changing but the story remaining the same. We lose ourselves in the immensity of deep time, like grains of sand upon an endless shore. Today, in our human-shaped world, we have taken the helm, steering the ship for better or worse. The background extinction rate has accelerated 100-fold or more from humanity's domination of the planet, with deforestation, poaching, pollution and climate change landing the final blows to lineages millions of years in the making. The last known thylacine, Benjamin, paced his concrete cage in the Hobart Zoo in Tasmania until his death in 1936, the end of a unique marsupial lineage of wolf-like predators. Martha, the last passenger pigeon, cooed her final notes from her perch at the Cincinnati Zoo in 1914, the sole living relic of flocks that once numbered in the billions and darkened the skies for days. The stories of dwindling geography, inbreeding and loss echo across the 20th century and into the next. But there is hope on the horizon, with valiant efforts to shine a light into the void. Around the globe, scientists and conservationists work tirelessly to protect and revive the most threatened species, the condors and tamarins, the kakapo and saiga and so many more. Genetic banks safeguard the blueprints of life, while reserves and corridors provide sanctuary for those on the brink. The fight is an uphill one, against the tide of 7 billion souls and their demands on the planet. But life has a stubborn tenacity, the embers of lineages surviving to seed the world anew. As we lay back and ponder the expanse of time, from those first wisps of Ediacaran life in primordial seas to today's threatened chorus of voices, one thing is clear: we are merely players on a stage billions of years old. To destroy so much for fleeting gain would be a tragic final act, a blink of an eye ending a masterpiece crafted through the ages. In our dreams, may we find the wisdom to learn from those who came before and the courage to hold fast to those who remain. The lullabies of whales and the wingbeats of cranes will carry us through the night, but only if we have the compassion to preserve the singers. So let us dream of ancient seas and fluttering forests, of the toil and triumphs of countless generations past. And when we wake, may we greet the dawn with renewed wonder for the treasure of life in all its forms, the greatest show on earth. The creatures may take their final bows, but the story of life will find a way to carry on, as it has through all nature's perils. We are merely stagehands, our solemn duty to safeguard the players until time itself rings down the curtain and the stage goes dark. But what a magnificent production it has been. Continuing the script in a calm storytelling tone, as the Triassic period unfolded, life on Earth enjoyed a renaissance of sorts after the devastation of the end Permian extinction. The continents remained fused together as the supercontinent Pangaea, surrounded by the vast ocean Panthalassa. Across the sprawling terrestrial landscape, a fascinating array of creatures emerged to fill the ecological niches left vacant by the Great Dying. The most distinctive and perhaps endearing of these Triassic oddballs were the Dicynodonts, a group of squat, tusked herbivores that more closely resembled tubby lizards than their distant mammalian cousins. These rotund, beaked plant-eaters trundled across the Pangaean plains in great herds, not unlike the bison of the North American prairie. At their Triassic peak, over 70 species of Dicynodont roamed the supercontinent, from dog-sized Diictodon to the ox-like Lystrosaurus. Despite their almost comical appearance, the Dicynodonts were a true evolutionary success story, having first appeared in the Permian and diversified into a dizzying variety of forms. But if the Dicynodonts were the gentle grazers of the Triassic savanna, then it was the archosaurs that were destined to inherit the Earth. This diverse group, whose name means ruling lizards, included the crocodile-like phytosaurs, the fleet-footed, ostrich-like ornithomimids, and most crucially, the earliest dinosaurs. While the Dicynodonts and other herbivores reached the zenith of their diversity in the early and middle Triassic, it was during the late Triassic that the archosaurs truly began to hit their stride. One of the most remarkable of these Triassic archosaurs were the phytosaurs, a lineage of semi-aquatic predators that bore a startling resemblance to modern crocodilians. Indeed, these ancient hunters were so similar in appearance to crocodiles and alligators that 19th century paleontologists originally classified them as ancient members of the crocodilian family tree. It wasn't until 1902 that American paleontologist John Campbell Merriam formally recognized the phytosaurs as a distinct and unique reptilian lineage. Like crocodiles, phytosaurs had long, tooth-studded snouts and sprawled postures, adaptations to an ambush hunting style in rivers and lakes. The nostrils of most phytosaurs were positioned near their eyes, rather than at the tip of the snout as in crocodiles, likely allowing them to breathe while keeping most of their body concealed beneath the water's surface. Some genera like Machaeroprosopus even evolved bizarrely crest-shaped snouts, which may have served as resonating chambers to produce loud vocalizations or as a form of sexual display. At up to 12 meters long, the mighty Redondosaurus was likely the apex predator of its environment, a monster of primeval rivers and swamps to match any Mesozoic crocodile. The remains of Redondosaurus and its kin have been found across the Pangaean landmass, from the American Southwest to India and Europe, often in rocks also containing the bones of early dinosaurs and giant amphibians. One can imagine a Redondosaurus hauled out on a Triassic sandbar, its armoured bulk warmed by the ancient sun, the zigzag frills on its back casting jagged shadows. While the phytosaurs and other big archosaurs patrolled the waterways, a different branch of the archosaur family tree was making its first tentative forays on land. The earliest dinosaurs, such as the dog-sized Eoraptor of Argentina, were small, bipedal runners, not unlike the roadrunners of the American Southwest. These pioneer species provide a glimpse of the key innovations that would later allow dinosaurs to rise to global dominance: upright, two-legged postures, grasping hands, and air-filled bones. At the time, the dinosaurs were merely bit players in the Triassic drama, lacking the size and specializations to compete with the more established reptile groups. But as we'll soon see, their moment on evolution's stage was drawing near. As the sun slipped below the horizon in the western Pangaean desert some 215 million years ago, a herd of Plateosaurus, stout, two-legged, plant-eating prosauropods, congregated around the lush banks of a braided river system. These beasts, some over 8 meters long, were among the largest dinosaurs of the late Triassic, foreshadowing the dominance their sauropod descendants would later enjoy. Nearby, a 2-meter-long Chelophysis, a delicately built swallow-tailed predator, darted from the undergrowth to nimbly pursue a dragonfly the size of a seagull. But this seemingly timeless vignette, one that may have played out countless times over millions of years in the Triassic, belied the fact that all was not well in the world. Unbeknownst to the dinosaurs and their reptilian contemporaries, great forces were stirring deep within the Earth, geologic and climatic tumult that would soon bring an end to the Triassic period and usher in the age of dinosaurs proper. Even as Plateosaurus and Coelophysis lived out their lives, thousands of kilometers away, a hellscape was unfolding on the surface of Pangaea. Great fissures ripped open the supercontinent, spewing curtains of lava, noxious gas, and searing ash in one of the greatest episodes of volcanism in Earth history, the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, or CAMP for short. The result of this prolonged eruptive phase, which spanned a staggering 600,000 years, was a layer of basaltic rock over 11 million cubic kilometers in volume, enough to bury the entire continent of Europe under a half-kilometer thick layer of lava. The environmental effects of the CAMP eruptions were nothing short of cataclysmic. Sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide, released in staggering quantities from the magma, choked the atmosphere and sent global temperatures soaring. In the oceans, a surge of acidity likely decimated plankton and reef communities, causing a crash in photosynthetic activity and a dearth of food and oxygen higher in the food chain. On land, the story may have been even grimmer, with a poisoned, rapidly warming atmosphere sparking wildfires on an unprecedented scale. Soot and ash further darkened the sky, even as torrential downpours lashed the barren, lifeless landscape. While we may never know the precise kill mechanisms for many Triassic creatures, the result is starkly apparent in the fossil record: a global, abrupt disappearance of species with up to 80% of all terrestrial vertebrates, and an even greater percentage of marine life vanishing in a geological instant. From mighty Redondosaurus to the clumsy Dicynodonts, many of the iconic animals that had dominated the Triassic world for millions of years slipped into the oblivion of extinction. Yet from this grim backdrop, a few groups managed to weather the storm and emerge on the other side. The dinosaurs, small and spry compared to many of their archaic competitors, were chief among them. With ecological space suddenly freed up and the competition largely decimated, these one-time underdogs spread and diversified, embarking on an evolutionary journey that would see them rise to rule the Earth for the next 135 million years. The age of reptiles had ended. The reign of the dinosaurs had begun. As the Permian period drew to a close, life on Earth was undergoing a remarkable transformation. Synapsids, those ancient mammal-like reptiles, had risen to dominate the land. They came in a dazzling variety of shapes and sizes, from the bulky, tusked Dicynodonts to the sleek and predatory Gorgonopsids. Alongside them scurried the first true mammals, tiny, shrew-like creatures still finding their place in this strange world. In the skies above soared giant dragonflies with wingspans the length of a human arm. These ancient insects thrived in the oxygen-rich atmosphere of the Permian, buzzing through steamy swamps and over vast conifer forests. Below, the first reptiles were also making their debut. The sailback Dimetrodon, often mistaken for a dinosaur, prowled the shadowlands, a relic of a more primitive age. But as vibrant and dynamic as the Permian world was, all was not well. Trouble was brewing deep within the Earth's crust. In a remote corner of what is now Siberia, a vast volcanic field known as the Siberian Traps was beginning to stir. Formed by a plume of superheated mantle rock rising from the depths, these ancient volcanoes would soon unleash hell on Earth. The first rumblings were subtle, a wisp of noxious gas here, a tremor there. But as the magma pushed ever closer to the surface, the eruptions grew more violent. Basaltic lava poured from countless fissures, flooding the landscape with molten rock. Towering fountains of fire lit up the night sky, raining down ash and debris for miles in every direction. But the lava itself was not the main killer. The real danger lay in the gases belched out by the eruptions, millions of tons of carbon dioxide and methane injected into the atmosphere. This sudden influx of greenhouse gases kicked off a deadly chain reaction that would ultimately doom the majority of Permian life. As the concentrations of carbon dioxide soared, global temperatures began to climb. The hothouse world of the Permian grew even hotter and drier. Plants withered and died off, unable to cope with the changing climate. Herbivores soon followed, deprived of their food source. The collapse of these key species sent shockwaves up the food chain. But the warming alone was not enough to cause the level of devastation seen in the fossil record. Another sinister factor was at play: the oceans. As more and more carbon dioxide dissolved into the seas, the water grew increasingly acidic. Delicate marine creatures like corals and sponges, which formed the basis of many ocean ecosystems, simply dissolved away. To make matters worse, the warming also disrupted the natural circulation of ocean currents. Stagnant and oxygen-starved zones spread through the depths. Entire seas became uninhabitable dead zones, belching out toxic hydrogen sulfide gas. This lethal cocktail of heat, acidity, and poison dealt the final blow to the struggling Permian biosphere. By the time the eruptions finally ceased, some 2 million years later, the damage was done. Up to 96% of all marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrates had vanished, erased from existence. The Permian had ended not with a whimper but with a bang, the greatest dying the world had ever known. It would be a Russian geologist named Alexei Pavlov who would help unravel this ancient murder mystery. Born in 1854, Pavlov came of age in the golden era of Russian geology. He was a man possessed by a deep fascination for the Earth and its secrets. His early work focused on the vast reaches of Siberia, a land of endless steppe and boreal forests stretching all the way to the Arctic Sea. It was here, in the remote Tunguska Basin, that Pavlov first encountered evidence of the Permian apocalypse. Exploring the banks of the Podkamenia-Tunguska River, he came upon a remarkable sight, layer upon layer of ancient lava flows stacked like pages in a book. To Pavlov's trained eye, these basalt formations told a story of unimaginable volcanic fury. But it was the strange fossils entombed within these rocks that truly captured Pavlov's imagination. Scattered among the basalt were the petrified remains of archaic plants, unlike any he had seen before. These fossils, he realized, belonged to the vanished world of the Permian, a snapshot of life on the eve of annihilation. Pavlov devoted the rest of his career to studying the Siberian traps and their connection to the end Permian extinction. His groundbreaking work laid the foundation for our modern understanding of this cataclysmic event. Thanks to Pavlov and the generations of geologists who followed in his footsteps, we now know the terrifying power of greenhouse gases to wreak havoc on the biosphere. As you drift off to sleep, ponder for a moment the fragility of life on this spinning blue marble we call home. The Permian extinction stands as a stark reminder that even the mightiest and most enduring of species are ultimately at the mercy of the forces that shape our world. In the face of such cosmic indifference, perhaps there is a strange comfort to be found in our own insignificance, the knowledge that we are but fleeting guests in the grand drama of Earth's history. And so the Permian came to a close, the stricken Earth reeling from the greatest catastrophe it had ever known. But even in the face of such total devastation, life endured. From the ashes of the Permian arose a new world, one that would in time give rise to the great ruling reptiles of the Mesozoic. The Triassic period dawned on an Earth still haunted by the ghosts of the Permian. The planet was a ravaged wasteland, its continents scorched and barren, its oceans stagnant and lifeless. But inch by inch, mile by mile, life began to reclaim the empty spaces left behind. Hardy pioneer species like the Lystrosaurus, a barrel-bodied burrowing synapsid, spread across the blighted continents, As the centuries rolled by, the Triassic world began to take shape. The empty niches left by the Permian decimation were slowly filled by a motley assortment of resilient survivors and opportunistic new arrivals. Temnospondyls, those ancient amphibious titans, hauled themselves from the murky depths to snap at buzzing insects in the humid Triassic swamps. The archosaurs, once a minor group in the Permian world, seized their moment in the sun. On land, the crocodile-like phytosaurs patrolled the riverbanks, their slender snouts lined with conical teeth. These fearsome predators bore a striking resemblance to the later crocodilians, a classic case of convergent evolution in action. In the seas, the dolphin-like ichthyosaurs quickened the lazy roll of evolution, honing their hydrodynamic forms to slice through the Triassic waves. These fish-shaped reptiles were the first of the great Mesozoic marine reptiles, long before the plesiosaurs or mosasaurs made their debut. But of all the creatures to emerge in the Triassic, none would shape the future course of life on Earth quite like the dinosaurs. These enigmatic archosaurs first appear in the fossil record around 245 million years ago, little more than a footnote in the margins of history. Early forms like the dog-sized Euraptor give little hint of the glory that awaits their kind. For much of the Triassic, the dinosaurs remained overshadowed by their archosaur cousins. The top predator slots were dominated by creatures like Saurosuchus, a gigantic Rauisuchian with a skull the size of a bathtub. But the dinosaurs were biding their time, slowly diversifying into the myriad forms that would one day dominate every corner of the globe. As the Triassic unfolded, the Earth began to stir once more. The supercontinent of Pangaea, which had amalgamated at the end of the Permian, was beginning to fracture. Great rifts yawned open as the continents slowly tore themselves apart, giving birth to the modern world map. This tectonic upheaval set the stage for another round of cataclysmic volcanism. The Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, a vast network of intrusions and lava flows, belched millions of cubic kilometers of magma along the rift that would one day become the Atlantic Ocean. Once again, the skies darkened with ash, and the air grew thick with carbon dioxide. The ensuing climate change devastated the late Triassic ecosystems. The lush forests of the humid Triassic gave way to parched deserts and scrublands. The giant amphibians, so reliant on watery habitats, dwindled and died out. The phytosaurs and Rauisuchians, apex predators of the Triassic, faded into memory. But for the dinosaurs, this global shake-up proved to be a golden opportunity. As their rivals faltered, the dinosaurs exploded into a frenzy of evolutionary experimentation. By the time the world settled into the new rhythms of the Jurassic, the dinosaurs reigned supreme. The age of the terrible lizards had begun. As you sink deeper into slumber, let your mind wander back to that distant time when the Earth was young and the future lay in the claws of the dinosaurs. Imagine the thrill of discovery felt by the scientists who first brushed the dust from their forgotten bones, the awe and wonder of gazing upon a lost world brought back to life. The Triassic-Jurassic extinction may mark a dark chapter in our planet's history, but it also reminds us of the indomitable resilience of life. No matter how dire the calamity, no matter how bleak the aftermath, life finds a way to adapt, to evolve, to carry on. It is a message of hope in a world that often seems hopeless, a reminder that even the darkest night must yield to the dawn. And so we leave the Triassic behind, the age of the dinosaurs stretching out before us like an untamed frontier. The Jurassic world is a realm of endless possibility, a crucible of evolutionary innovation that will shape the course of life on Earth for the next 135 million years. But that is a story for another night. For now, let the soft whisper of Jurassic breezes lull you into dreamless sleep, while visions of long-necked sauropods and soaring pterosaurs dance through your subconscious mind. Good night, and sweet dreams of ancient worlds long lost to time. As we've seen, the end Cretaceous extinction was a pivotal turning point in Earth's history, wiping out the dinosaurs that had ruled for over 150 million years and paving the way for the age of mammals. But this transition didn't happen overnight. In the aftermath of the impact, our planet was a very different place. Dust and aerosols ejected by the asteroid strike blanketed the atmosphere, blocking out sunlight and causing global temperatures to plunge. Photosynthesis all but shut down, causing widespread famine in herbivorous animals and the predators that depended on them. Sulfur compounds released from vaporized rock reacted with atmospheric water vapor to produce acid rain, which killed much of the plant life that hadn't already succumbed to the lack of sunlight. It must have seemed like the end of the world. Paleontologists can see evidence of this bleak chapter written in the geological record. In the layers of rock immediately above the fateful impact clay, at fossil sites around the world, there is an eerie gap. These dead zones are almost entirely barren of the once abundant fossils of the Cretaceous, a grim testament to the global catastrophe. But amidst this devastation, some resilient creatures survived. Deep below ground, tiny burrowing mammals waited out the cataclysm, sustained by insects that shared their subterranean refuge. In rivers and lakes, hardy fish and amphibians endured despite the ravages of acid rain. And buried deep in the ocean, the ancestors of today's great whales held on in the dark depths. As the skies finally cleared and surviving plants tentatively unfurled their leaves, these modest animals emerged into a reshaped world ripe with new opportunity. Over the coming millions of years, they would diversify into a spectacular array of new forms to fill the ecological roles left vacant by the dinosaurs. The early Paleocene epoch, immediately after the extinction, would have been almost unrecognizable to us today. The world's forests were dominated not by majestic oaks and pines, but by fast-growing ferns and shrubby flowering plants that were the first to recolonize the barren post-impact landscape. Mammals were still relatively small, most no larger than a house cat, but they were steadily growing in size and variety. One of the most significant groups of mammals to arise during this time were the archaic ungulates, or condylarths. These distant ancestors of today's hoofed mammals came in a surprising variety of shapes and sizes. Some, like Ectocion, resembled tiny deer with long, slender legs for running. Others, like Arctocion, were stouter and more bear-like in build. Over time, these pioneer mammals would give rise to an incredible diversity of descendants. From the swift, graceful horses of the Great Plains to the majestic whales that patrol the oceans, the condylarths set the stage for the mammal-dominated world we know today. But while mammals may have stolen the spotlight, they were far from the only success story of this time. In the rivers of the Paleocene and Eocene, giant relatives of salamanders called Lyssamphibia lurked in wait for prey. Some, like Coolosuchus, were as large as crocodiles. Birds, too, were steadily growing in size and variety. Flightless predatory birds called terror birds patrolled ancient South America, some towering over 8 feet tall. Even the reptiles, after their shattering losses in the end Cretaceous extinction, were staging a comeback. Champsosaurus, an aquatic reptile that resembled a crocodile with a long narrow snout, haunted Paleocene swamps and rivers. On land, the earliest ancestors of today's snakes were beginning their own evolutionary experiments, steadily losing their limbs and taking on a more streamlined, serpentine form. As the age of mammals progressed through the Eocene epoch, roughly 56 to 33 million years ago, the world became a warmer, wetter place. Lush rainforests stretched almost from pole to pole, and the first grasses were beginning to appear, setting the stage for the rise of vast savannas. It was a time of evolutionary innovation, when many iconic mammal groups first emerged, but the Eocene world would have seemed quite alien to modern eyes. In the forests of what is now Wyoming, tiny proto-horses scampered beneath the feet of towering Uintatherium, rhino-like beasts with elaborate knobby crests on their skulls. Sheep-sized early primates called Notharctus clambered through the canopy, while the wolf-like Miasis, an ancestor of modern dogs, stalked the undergrowth. And in the skies above, some of the largest flying birds ever to live soared on the thermals. Pelagornithids, with wingspans up to 20 feet wide. The Eocene also saw the emergence of the very first whales, but these were a far cry from the gentle giants we know today. Pachycetus, one of the earliest known whales, was a wolf-sized wader that likely hunted fish in the shallows of the ancient Tethys Sea. Over millions of years, these modest beginnings would lead to the rise of fully aquatic whales. We'll trace that fascinating journey of adaptation shortly. But for all its lushness and evolutionary exuberance, the Eocene world was living on borrowed time. The hothouse climate that had enabled such riotous biodiversity was becoming increasingly unstable, and the epoch would end with another mass extinction that reshaped life on Earth once again. The stage was set for the next act in the ongoing drama of life's evolution. But first, let's get to know some of the most remarkable characters of the early age of mammals a little better, starting with a tiny pioneer whose descendants would one day inherit the plains. As you drift off into the Quaternary world, imagine stepping into a vast chilly landscape inhabited by some of the most spectacular creatures to ever walk the earth. The Pleistocene epoch, spanning from 2.6 million to around 12,000 years ago, was the age of the megafauna, giant animals that roamed the continents alongside early humans. Picture the majestic woolly mammoth, a huge, shaggy beast standing up to 11 feet tall at the shoulder. With their sweeping tusks and small ears, these cousins of modern elephants were well adapted to the cold climates of the Pleistocene. Herds of mammoths would have traversed the steppe grasslands of Europe, Asia and North America, grazing on hardy grasses and shrubs. Their immense size and thick, furry coats protected them from predators in the bitter cold of the Ice Age. But the mammoths were far from alone in this epic bestiary. Fierce saber-toothed cats stalked the plains, their elongated canine teeth earning them the apt nickname saber-tooths. The North American Smilodon fatalis was a compact but powerful predator, well-muscled and weighing up to 600 pounds. These ambush hunters likely preyed on large Ice Age herbivores like bison, camels and juvenile mammoths. Elsewhere, the massive short-faced bear, one of the largest carnivores of the time, would have struck fear into the hearts of other megafauna. Standing over 6 feet tall on its hind legs, with a face shorter than that of modern bears, this formidable beast had long limbs built for running down its prey. And then there were the giant ground sloths, lumbering herbivores that could reach up to 20 feet in length. These slow-moving creatures had huge, curved claws for stripping leaves and bark. Different species inhabited the Americas, like the imposing Megatherium that roamed South America, and the slightly smaller Eremotherium that made it as far north as Florida. But how do we know about this lost menagerie? The secret lies in their fossils, turned up by observant naturalists and paleontologists around the world. In the 18th century, the pioneering French scientist Georges Cuvier was one of the first to recognize that mammoth bones belonged to an extinct elephant. His work helped establish extinction as a fact, a revolutionary idea at the time. Since then, some spectacularly well-preserved megafaunal mummies have emerged from the permafrost of Siberia. In 1977, a baby woolly mammoth later named Dima was discovered by a gold miner in the Siberian tundra. This 6 to 8 month old calf died around 40,000 years ago and was so well preserved by the ice that its trunk and eyes were still intact. Studying Dima has given us incredible insights into mammoth biology and behaviour. Over in Alaska, miners discovered the Blue Babe, a 36,000-year-old mummified steppe bison in 1979. Named for its dark blue mineral coating, this extinct species was 20% larger than modern bison. The bison's well-preserved internal organs and a tooth from an American lion embedded in its neck shed light on how Pleistocene predators hunted these huge herbivores. Yet as you imagine the windswept mammoth steppe, a lingering question remains. What caused the disappearance of the Pleistocene megafauna? It's a mystery that has long puzzled scientists with several competing theories. The first and perhaps most dramatic hypothesis suggests that skilled human hunters, armed with spears and other projectiles, overhunted megafaunal populations, driving them to extinction. As our ancestors spread out across the globe, their advanced hunting techniques and ability to work together may have allowed them to take down even giant mammoths and mastodons. Support for this idea comes from archaeological sites like the 14,000-year-old mammoth bone bed in South Dakota, where early humans seem to have repeatedly killed and butchered mammoths. Anthropologists have also noted that extinctions often followed human colonization of new areas, from Australia to the Americas, in a deadly pattern. But not everyone agrees that humans are to blame. Other researchers point to the rapidly changing climate at the end of the Pleistocene as the key factor. As the world emerged from the last ice age around 12,000 years ago, warmer temperatures, shifting rainfall patterns and rising sea levels dramatically reshaped habitats across the globe. The mammoth steppe, a vast grassland ecosystem that once stretched from Spain to Canada, gave way to mosaic environments of forests, tundra and grasslands. Such profound changes in vegetation likely altered the food supply for many megafaunal species that had evolved to eat the distinctive grasses and sedges of the steppe. Fossils also show that some megafauna were already in decline before humans arrived on the scene. The cave bear, a huge bear that once inhabited Eurasia, dwindled in numbers long before our species had settled the continent. Similarly, DNA evidence suggests that mammoth populations on remote islands like St. Paul in Alaska were suffering from inbreeding and harsh conditions. Most likely the Great Pleistocene die-off had multiple interacting causes. Climate change may have stressed megafaunal populations, making them more vulnerable to human hunting pressure. Habitat fragmentation could also have prevented animals from migrating or finding mates, accelerating local extinctions. As with most things in nature, the answer is probably not a simple one. Still, the story of the Pleistocene megafauna and their sudden disappearance carries a sobering message for our own time. Today, many scientists argue we're in the midst of a sixth mass extinction, one driven by human activities. Habitat loss, pollution, climate change, and other human-caused stresses are devastating populations of mammals, birds, amphibians, and other life forms at an unprecedented pace. Yet all is not lost. As you drift off to sleep, hold on to the knowledge that nature can be incredibly resilient. After each mass extinction in Earth's history, life has recovered and flourished anew. Innovative conservation efforts, from captive breeding programs to protected nature reserves, offer hope that we can stem the tide of extinction and protect our planet's remaining megafauna, from elephants to rhinos. And the Pleistocene bestiary lives on, in the fossil halls of museums and in our imaginations. As you slip into dreamland, let your mind wander back to that spectacular time when giants roamed the earth and early humans marvelled at their majesty. The echoes of their presence still whisper in the wind, a reminder of the magnificent chapters in life's ever-unfolding story. Our journey through the annals of Earth's mass extinctions now brings us to the latest and most unsettling chapter, the Holocene extinctions and the rise of the Anthropocene. The Holocene, the geological epoch that began after the last ice age some 12,000 years ago, has been a time of remarkable change for our planet and the life upon it. And the driving force behind much of this transformation has been a single species, Homo sapiens. As the Pleistocene megafauna vanished, a new age dawned, the age of humans. Picture a world reshaped by the ingenuity and ambition of our ancestors. The agricultural revolution, beginning around 12,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, saw hunter-gatherers settle down to tend crops and raise livestock. This momentous shift allowed human populations to grow and civilizations to flourish, from the great cities of Mesopotamia to the rice paddies of China. With agriculture came profound changes to the natural world. Forests were felled for farmland, wetlands drained for pasture, and wild species tamed into domestic breeds. The impact of early farmers on the landscapes they inhabited was so significant that some scientists argue the Anthropocene, the proposed geological epoch of human influence, really began with the first agricultural societies. Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution of the late 18th and 19th centuries, and the pace of change accelerated dramatically. The harnessing of fossil fuels like coal and oil powered an unprecedented explosion of technology, manufacturing, and global trade. Railways, factories, and steamships transformed the face of the planet, as did booming human populations and the growth of megacities. But this progress came at a steep ecological cost. The burning of fossil fuels began to alter the very chemistry of the atmosphere, setting in motion the climatic upheaval of global warming. Forests, grasslands, and other wild habitats were fragmented and degraded at an alarming rate. And the expansion of human settlements brought our species into increasing conflict with the creatures we shared the planet with. One of the most poignant symbols of the Anthropocene extinctions is the passenger pigeon. This once abundant bird darkened the skies of North America in flocks hundreds of millions strong. Yet relentless hunting and deforestation drove the species to the brink in just a few short decades. Martha, the last passenger pigeon, died in captivity at the Cincinnati Zoo in 1914, a somber testament to the devastating swiftness of anthropogenic extinction. Martha's story is far from unique. From the Tasmanian tiger or thylacine, a carnivorous marsupial hunted to oblivion in the early 20th century, to the golden toad of Costa Rica, likely a victim of fungal disease spread by human trade, the casualties of the Anthropocene span the globe. Ecologists estimate that current extinction rates are up to 1,000 times higher than the natural background rate, leading some to declare that the sixth mass extinction is already upon us. Yet amidst the grim headlines, there are glimmers of hope. Scientists and conservationists around the world are working tirelessly to study and protect endangered species and their habitats. From captive breeding programs that have brought animals like the California condor and the black-footed ferret back from the brink, to the rewilding of landscapes like the Oostvaardersplassen in the Netherlands, efforts to stem the tide of extinction are gathering momentum. There is also growing recognition that protecting biodiversity is not just an ethical imperative, but an economic and social necessity. The complex web of life that sustains us, from the insects that pollinate our crops to the forests that regulate our climate, is fraying at the seams. By fighting to save species and ecosystems, we are really fighting for our own survival and well-being. As you let your mind drift through the epochs, from the primordial oceans of the Ediacaran to the early hominin plains of the Pleistocene, reflect on the incredible story of life on Earth. Mass extinctions have punctuated that story like plot twists in a grand drama, each one reshaping the cast of characters on the evolutionary stage. Yet after every curtain fall, life has risen again, adapting and diversifying in a dazzling array of new forms. From the first tentative stirrings of multicellular life to the thundering herds of woolly mammoths, the tenacity and creativity of nature have known no bounds. Even in the face of the most devastating catastrophes, from supervolcano eruptions to extraterrestrial impacts, life has found a way. And now, as we grapple with the challenge of the Anthropocene extinctions, we must find our own way forward. The path will not be easy, and the stakes could not be higher. But if the long history of Earth has taught us anything, it is that life, in all its myriad forms, is worth fighting for. So as you slip into the embrace of sleep, let your dreams be filled with visions of a thriving, biodiverse world. Imagine the snow leopard prowling the mountain crags of the Himalayas, the monarch butterfly fluttering across the meadows of Mexico, the coral polyps weaving their kaleidoscopic cities beneath the waves. These wonders are our birthright and our responsibility, the precious inheritance of a planet that has been through so much. In the end, the story of Earth's mass extinctions is still being written, and we all have a part to play. By cherishing the diversity of life in all its forms, by working to heal the wounds we have inflicted on the natural world, we can help ensure that the story has a hopeful ending. The power to shape the future of a life on this planet lies in our hands. May we wield it with wisdom, compassion, and respect for the countless wonders that have come before us. And so, as you drift off into the soft embrace of sleep, carry with you a sense of wonder for the incredible story of life on Earth. From the first sparks of existence to the challenges of our present day, it has been a journey of unimaginable scope and complexity. The mass extinctions that have punctuated that journey remind us of the fragility and preciousness of life and the need to cherish and protect it in all its forms. May your dreams be filled with visions of a world where nature thrives, where the great unfolding of evolution continues its magnificent dance, and may you awaken with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to play your part in shaping a future where all life can flourish under the patient stars. Good night, and sleep well. As the last of the non-avian dinosaurs took their final breaths, a new chapter was dawning for our planet. In the aftermath of the asteroid impact, the world was a drastically different place. The once lush forests were reduced to charred remnants, and the skies were choked with ash and debris. It was a desolate landscape, one that seemed almost incompatible with life. But amidst the destruction, there were survivors. Small furry creatures that had long lived in the shadows of the mighty dinosaurs emerged from their burrows and hiding places. These early mammals, no larger than a common house cat, would go on to inherit the Earth. Over the ensuing millions of years, they evolved and diversified, giving rise to a spectacular array of forms, from the majestic woolly mammoths of the Ice Age to the acrobatic primates swinging through the trees. One of the most remarkable of these mammalian dynasties was the order Primates, which includes monkeys, apes, and of course, humans. The earliest primates appeared just after the extinction of the dinosaurs, scampering through the branches of the dense forests that began to regrow. With their grasping hands, keen vision, and inquisitive natures, primates were well adapted to life in the trees. Over time, primates continued to evolve and specialize. Some, like the peculiar lemur-like adapiforms, developed unique adaptations such as enlarged snouts for sniffing out food. Others, like the tiny bug-eyed Tilhardina, were early ancestors of today's tarsiers. But it was during the Eocene epoch, around 56 to 33 million years ago, that primates truly hit their stride. The Eocene was a time of warm, humid climates across much of the globe. Dense forests blanketed the land, providing the perfect habitat for tree-dwelling primates to thrive. In North America, Europe and Asia, a group known as the Hominidae, or dawn monkeys, flourished. These early relatives of tarsiers and monkeys scampered through the canopy, feasting on insects and fruit. Meanwhile, the ancestors of lemurs and lorises, the so-called wet-nosed primates, were evolving in the Old World. One extraordinary creature from this time was Darwinius, also known as Ida, a juvenile female primate exquisitely preserved in the Messelpit fossil deposits of Germany. Discovered in 1983 by amateur fossil collectors, Ida's remarkable preservation provided an unprecedented glimpse into the form and lifestyle of early primates. But the Eocene world that Ida and her kind inhabited would not last forever. Around 33 million years ago, at the boundary between the Eocene and Oligocene epochs, Earth's climate began to cool. The lush forests gradually gave way to more open woodland and grassland habitats. For many primates, this spelled disaster. The once diverse and successful Hominidae disappeared entirely in North America and Europe, victims of the changing environmental conditions. In Asia, only a handful of lineages survived. The Strepsirrhine primates, including the ancestors of lemurs and lorises, fared somewhat better, but they too saw declines. It was a time of great upheaval, not just for primates, but for life on Earth as a whole. The Eocene-Oligocene transition marked a major shift in global climate and ecosystems. Jungles transformed into woodlands and savannas. Many archaic mammal groups, such as the ungainly brontotheres and the carnivorous creodonts, dwindled and eventually vanished, unable to adapt to the new conditions. In their place, new kinds of mammals arose, better suited to the increasingly open habitats. Horses, which began as small multi-toed creatures in the forests of the Eocene, gradually evolved into fleet-footed grazers galloping across the plains. Rhinos and camels too found success in the expanding grasslands. For primates, the cooling climate and shifting landscapes meant a time of testing. Those that could adapt to the new environments, such as the early Old World monkeys and the ancestors of great apes, persisted and gave rise to the myriad primate species we know today. Others, like the enigmatic adapiforms of Europe and North America, disappeared into extinction, leaving only tantalizing fossil clues to their existence. The Eocene-Oligocene transition stands as a stark reminder of the ever-changing nature of life on Earth. Species and ecosystems that thrive in one set of conditions can quickly find themselves struggling when the world around them shifts. It's a story that has played out time and time again over our planet's long history, from the rise and fall of the dinosaurs to the waxing and waning of the great Ice Age beasts. And yet, through all the upheavals and transformations, life persists. Primates, which seemed so vulnerable in the cooling climates of the Oligocene, went on to become one of the most successful and diverse mammal groups, giving rise to a lineage that would one day ponder its own origins. Even now, in the modern age, we are not immune to the forces of environmental change. Human activities are altering the global climate at an unprecedented pace, transforming habitats and ecosystems around the world. The sixth mass extinction, the one happening today, is unfolding before our very eyes. But just as the mammals of the Paleocene rose from the ashes of the dinosaurs and the primates of the Oligocene adapted to a changing world, life has a way of finding a path forward. The story of evolution is one of resilience, of endless forms most beautiful emerging from the crucible of change. As we reflect on the profound history of life on our planet, from the first stirrings in the primordial oceans to the astonishing diversity all around us, we can't help but feel a sense of awe and humility. We are just one small part of an immense and intricate web, a tapestry woven over billions of years, shaped by cataclysms and extinctions, but also by the tenacity and creativity of nature itself. So as you drift off to sleep, take a moment to marvel at the incredible journey that has led to this point. The ground beneath your feet, the air you breathe, the creatures that share our world. All of it is part of an epic story that stretches back to the very beginning of time, and who knows what the next chapter may hold. In a million years, what new forms might arise to fill the niches left by those that came before? What wonders might evolution dream up in the face of a changing world? One thing is certain, the story of life on Earth is far from over. Even in the darkest times when it seems that all may be lost, nature finds a way to adapt, to persist, to flourish anew. It's a tale of hope and resilience, one that has been unfolding since the dawn of creation and will continue long after we are gone. So as you drift off to sleep, take comfort in the knowledge that you are part of something vast and enduring. The lullaby of life, sung over the ages, as it will be for ages to come. And with that, my friends, our journey through Earth's incredible history of mass extinctions comes to a close. Thank you for joining me on this voyage through time. I hope you found the experience immersive and enlightening, a moment of tranquility in this busy world. If you enjoyed our time together and managed to drift off peacefully along the way, I would be honoured if you would like and subscribe to these bedtime science reflections. Your support helps to continue spreading the wonder of nature and the joy of scientific discovery to curious minds everywhere, while also providing some much-needed restful contemplation. Until next time, may your dreams be filled with the beauty and resilience of the natural world that surrounds us. Good night, and sleep well.